It's time to re-rank wide receivers. We've had pro days, we've had combines, and it's again, we need to reevaluate and adjust. And we've got a couple of new guys that we've mixed into these rankings as well. And we're going deeper. It's me, Jagger May, and that's Andrew Mott. And we are going to give you our top 20 tiers and rankings of the 2026 wide receiver class. Starting at the top with the S tier, Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson. We're not going to spend that much time here because it seems like Jordan Tyson's yo-yoed back up to your wide receiver one. um, I feel like you switch your top three every day. Actually,
No. I don't switch my top three every day. Really, it's just last week I said, you know what, Jordan Tyson's moved down, and I said, what am I doing here, bro? Let's move him right back up. I had some time to sit there and think about it, and really, it was just I think I got caught short term in that hamstring stuff. I'm trusting. Look, Jagger, I'm trusting what my eyes are telling me, dude. I see Jordan Tyson. To me, he looks the most talented on film. I can't move him down unless we get to NFL draft and NFL teams are scared of Jordan Tyson and he falls in draft capital.
Yeah, I do. I hear both sides. And again, I feel like if you're new here, this is new to you. But if you've been here, you've heard me and Andrew talk about that. I'm just not as high on the tape as where Andrew is. And if he falls because of injury, I'm going to be concerned unless it's just like the ideal spot, because it's like I'm looking here from, let's see, it's March 20th, so last week. It's been 3 months 21 days since Jordan Tyson last played a game, according to Dane Blugler. He won't participate at his pro day. Also sounds like his hamstring may have flared up during his training. It's just, he's one of these guys where every time something else comes out, I don't love it, and that's enough for me to have him still in this tier. It's not enough for me to move him out of this tier, but it's enough for me to put him at the bottom of this tier, and I think that's fine. That's why we do tiers, guys, because it's like I'm not going to sit here and fight Andrew like, you're so stupid. Mekhi Lemon had no mistakes at all. He didn't embarrass himself at the combine or do anything like that. It's just not true, you know? And, you know, Carnell Tate didn't have any weird concerns pop up, which I actually don't think he had any at all, really. Everyone just took 4 or 5 and like kind of ran with it. So next, we'll go down to the A tier, and naturally, KC Concepcion fell into his own bucket for the simple fact that I have him at wide receiver 3. I have him ahead of Jordan Tyson now. Like, I've moved Tyson down, and you are at the same spot. Like, he's been your wide receiver 4 since like day one, I feel like, and he hasn't really
Not
moved.
changing, man.
Yeah. So
It's just, look, and he's the topic of conversation recently because Matt Harmon dropped his reception perception profile on Casey Concepcion, and all of a sudden, everybody who maybe or maybe wasn't, I don't know, watching the tape, all of a sudden starts getting interested in Casey Concepcion because Matt Harmon shows a profile that has a lot of green on it. That's just kind of where we're at in the draft cycle right now. Jagger, you were early on Casey. You got us early on Casey. He's kind of in this bucket of his own, man, because he just plays at a little bit higher of a level than everybody else underneath or beneath him. There's really not a lot that I think I should be concerned about with KC. Like, a lot of the things that I was really coming in to the combine process or to the pro days process and saying, like, I need to make sure he's actually 5'11". I don't want him to be 5'10", 5'9". Like, I need to make sure that that's true. I need to make sure that the weight is where it's at or where he's actually listed at Texas A&M. I need to make sure the speed's still there. Dude, all of these questions were answered. The only questions I had about him, passing grades. So for me, I'm not overthinking it, man. He is a top 7-ish rookie for me in this year's draft class, and he's my wide receiver 4, firmly in a tier of his own.
yeah, and I'm obviously the highest on him. If he gets the ideal landing spot, I wouldn't be surprised if he's wide receiver 2 or even in the wide receiver 1 category, because he just makes so much sense to the Chiefs. If the Chiefs draft him, how close to the wide receiver 1 do you think he is?
My rankings or like how I think the market will react to him?
Both.
I think with my rankings, if he goes to the Chiefs, it depends on the landing spot of the other 3. It's going to be hard for him to get into that tier for me with those other guys. I just see there's a gap between them for me. But I think
even if going to the Chiefs with like, he's a better prospect than he's a better prospect than Rashee Rice was, and Rashee Rice is probably going to be suspended.
That's fair. I think we overhyped the Kansas City Chiefs landing spot a lot. And we'll see what happens with that early this year. They could, I mean, what do you think the chances are, Jagger, of them starting the year off with Justin Fields as a starting quarterback because Mahomes isn't ready?
I mean, that's probably going to happen. I'm just saying, like, long term for like, and if you're talking about the number one rookie as far as only the 2026 season, then yeah, that'd be a different conversation. But I think you're right that we overhyped Kansas City as a landing spot because we overhyped the receivers that go there.
Yeah,
Let's just be real about it. Sky Moore was a terrible prospect. I did not believe in Xavier Worthy at all as much as everyone else did. Like that's everyone else talked themselves up more into Worthy than I think he actually was, and he just like wasn't that guy. I think that Casey before this was even a possibility of him being a Chief, I thought he was that guy, and I don't think any of these guys prior to Concepcion to bring up the profile from Matt Harmon have ever had this green of a route tree. Rashi Rice now doesn't have that green of a route tree because he's jokingly said it's a route bush. Homie runs nothing but slants and stuff like that. So that's, I just want to say that. It's like, to me, it'd be hard for him not being in that tier going to the Chiefs. He's just like
that's fair.
one of the most talented dudes.
But in all fairness, you already have him in that tier. So for you, it's
That's,
easy to move up into there.
yes. Yeah. It's because, like, to me, like, you worry about Justin Fields being there. Like, Makai Lemon is like on Jet, like Danger Watch. All these guys are on Jet
Miami
Danger
Dolphins,
Watch.
Willis Danger Watch.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. That's like I think right now it's easy to say it's hard for you, but like once these guys get there and you're really starting to do those projections, it's probably going to get gross real fast. The Dolphins, good for them for taking all the way, I guess. While we're here, and this isn't just a conception tweet. Basically, this next tier of guys, and a couple of other down low, like we got Ted Hurst down there that we're going to be talking about pretty soon, are really relevant here. Rich Hribar, the inventor of the Konami Code term, Konami Code quarterback over Roto World. Pass catchers in this class with 25% of their targets being uncatchable. Donovan McCulley at 32.1%. Ted Hurst, who I brought up earlier, 29.3%. Going down to our known guys, Jeremy Bernard, 26.9. Malachi Fields, 26.6. KC Concepcion, 25%. Marcel Reed, not good. Denzel Boston, 25%. To me, this shows like I really like that other tier, but these next tiers are they're not as significantly lower. It's not like as a huge bump or gap as we've seen in the past. And I don't know if you feel that way because it's like if I'm going to be at the top of the second round, even if a guy goes third round at wide receiver, I'm probably going to feel a lot better than almost any other position in this class.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just be totally real with you. I don't have a single running back outside of Jeremiah Love that I think is worthy of taking a pick in the first round of your rookie drafts right now. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
just don't think he's somebody or I just don't think that those running backs are worth much at all right now, unless we see like a great landing spot and get surprised with draft capital. Like I was talking the other day, I was on FFPC Insider Access last night, and we were talking about Jadarian Price, and like if Jadarian Price somehow lands in Seattle, like round 3, that's like the only situation where maybe we get excited, or a Mike Washington lands there in round 3. Like, but outside of Seattle, is there anywhere else that gives you confidence that these guys will have a workload week 1?
No. And particularly just like ask yourself which one ask yourself the NFL question. Who are you going to build your team around? It's none of these running backs. None of these running backs are building blocks for an NFL team. Jeremiah Love is a building block. He's someone that, all right, he's going to be a workhorse in my offense. To go back to the running back class ahead of time, you could tell yourself, hey, we're going to build our roster around Bashal Tootin just because he's fast, productive, has a little bit of receiving profile. You could see that he could end up being a steady workhorse within that offense. You could talk yourself into it. The rest of these guys, not very fast, not very big, not very good at third down, all the things that don't make money. Whereas like these other guys that we're going to be talking about pretty soon, and we'll go ahead and drop down a tier to the B tier, Omar Cooper and Denzel Boston. they're in another tier of their own. These guys are both just as likely to be in the first round as Casey Concepcion is. It's just a realistic thing that could happen. We haven't flip flopped. You're ahead on Denzel Boston. I'm ahead on Omar Cooper. You were the Omar Cooper guy first. Did anything change, or was this more about the NFL buzz? What happened with you, or does it not even really matter that much? That's another
Um,
option.
in all fairness, I don't think I was the Omar Cooper guy first. I think that was Jared, who was
Actually, it was
actually
Jared.
it was
Yeah.
Jared who was the Omar Cooper. So for me, it's really just I've risen on Omar Cooper, but I think Denzel Boston profiles as probably a guy who can go in, NFL draft capital. I think it's cleaner for Boston to potentially get first round draft capital than it is for Omar. So trying to project it that way, seeing his role being an outside boundary guy, somebody who can play above the rim, play in the red zone for an offense, like that feels like he's going to be not as scheme dependent as Omar Cooper. Omar Cooper to me feels like a guy where if you get him in the right scheme, the ceiling's going to be significantly higher than Denzel Boston, but he does need the right system to be successful in it. You're muted, I think.
Denzel Boston is Chris Sims, wide receiver one. Uh, this is a
Well,
running joke. It seems like every year. I hate it. I don't want to be disrespectful like that, but it's subjectively nuts. I think, right? It's a little
yeah,
bit
I mean,
crazy.
for what it's worth, like you said, it's not trying to be disrespectful. Chris Sims clearly knows what he's talking about 90% of the time, but it feels like every year we get this wide receiver list that just is like, what are we talking about here? Like every year, I don't know if it's part of me worries, and I'm gonna go off on a tangent here.
Go.
Is part of this just to get people talking and do clicks? Like, is this really what it is?
It's got to be a gimmick, man. Because like when we're going to talk about, eh, maybe it's not a gimmick. Zach Branch being anyone's top 5 is, I think, is egregious to me. Denzel Boston, I can I could have a couple of beers and get there. Let's put it that way.
Boston's my wide receiver 5, dude. Like, he's
Yeah.
my wide receiver 5 in the class, so he's in the top 5. He's not number
Yeah,
1.
he's not number 1. Exactly, is what I'm saying, because that's we talk about the tier there. But like even having Zach Branch in on the same graphic as some of these other dudes is just beyond bonkers to me. That's why why I wanted to bring it up. It feels like theater here because Denzel Boston 1, Jordan Tyson 2. Congrats, some consistency. Chris Brazzle. I'm the Chris Brazzle guy. I just don't think he's better than Carnell Tate right now, or he's safer than Carnell Tate. And
Not
then
a chance.
Zach Branch in tier 3 is I don't know, man. I don't know. Omar Cooper, I agree with you. I could see it where he's a little bit more scheme dependent. I will say he just does things that I think a lot of teams like, but if you put him on like the Dolphins as to be their wide receiver 1, I just don't think that's working. If you're gonna put him on the Jets to be a wide receiver 2 to Garrett Wilson, I do like that because I think it'd almost be a 1A 1B at that point. I do think that he has an opportunity to play a lot like Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's just that's a high ask. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a very, very good receiver. I just try not to comp guys to perennial Pro Bowls. Interesting
Yeah.
things to bring it back to Denzel Boston on his pro day, March 17th, via Dane Brugler. 6'8", 3-cone drill, 4.3 shuttle, 37.5 vert. Modest numbers and a lot of positive things coming from scouts. So I could easily, like, after this, I would feel comfortable moving Denzel Boston ahead of Omar Cooper. He's literally a guy I move around all the time because I'm just not as confident, but obviously the tools are there. Before we move down to the C tier, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. You guys have been great. We're trying to get there to 2,000, especially if you're on our audio side. Leave us 5 stars. Tell us a story. Tell us how much that you like me or Andrew. We do like compliments. That is something we run on. We make content for a living. And more importantly, if you want to look over all the tape on these wide receivers, we have tape on every one of these guys. I'm pretty positive on. Go over to Dynasty Nerds, join our nerd herd, and you can get access to all 22 tape of everyone that's condensed down to where you're watching a 10-minute video. That's one solid poop where you can get all 22 tape and you can tell someone, hey, I've watched the tape on this guy. And you can tweet at your favorite analyst that, hey, you didn't watch the tape. So make sure to go and join the nerd herd today. Okay, done paying bills. We're moving down to the C tier. Chris Brazzell the second, Jeremy Bernard, Jacoby Lane, Malachi Fields. Jeremy Bernard is firmly in your top 10 as your wide receiver 7. Chris
Yep.
Brazzell is firmly in my top 10 with the wide receiver 7. Again, these are the same tiers. I'm not arguing with pretty much anyone on anything. I think the only big thing is I'm a lot higher on Malachi Fields than you are. There's not a lot of difference between Malachi Fields and Denzel Boston to me. And especially when you look at the that those fun little numbers of contested catch rate, and you remember who Notre Dame's had at quarterbacks, it's easy for me to get there. So to have them a lot higher, that's the only big differences within that tier between us.
Yeah, I mean, for me, really having Jeremy Bernard, I actually have him in the tier above with Boston and Cooper. He's in that tier for me as a
Mm.
receiver, and then I have Brazel kind of by himself. So I kind of view those as the next guys for me. Bernard at 7, Brazel at 8. But Bernard, he's just a player that I feel very confident in. I've just realized, throughout this draft cycle, early days, like I was going to be higher than consensus on Jeremy Bernard, and he was kind of just a guy that kind of fell into my guy territory for me. I just think he's very savvy, man. He's a very good route runner. You can use him all over the football field. He has this veteran feel to him where it's like you can tell this is a guy who's played at a high level. He understands the game at a high level. He's quarterback friendly. You can use him in a whole bunch of different ways. And it's going to be hard, I think, for NFL teams to see somebody who plays like that and say, yeah, I'm not interested. Like everybody's going to have some interest, I think, in Jeremy Bernard. You could argue that he may be a little bit scheme dependent like Omar Cooper, but I think he can play all around the football field a little bit better than Omar Cooper can, as far as, playing outside, playing inside in the slot, playing used out of the backfield, like things like that. So I do like him a lot more than consensus. Where did you have him in your rankings?
Bernard 10, right at
10.
10.
Okay.
And to be fair, I think the B tier is a lot bigger for me than it is for you, because I agree with you 100% of your analysis about Jeremy Bernard and Omar Cooper. They're the same archetype for me
Yeah.
of guy. It's just like depending on what team you want, and it's like I think I'm just higher on Jacoby Lane and Malachi Fields than you are, because you got. We're going to talk about this like Chris Bell and Elijah Surratt. I have zero interest in either of these guys, for like at least not until day 3. If I'm an NFL team, and then if you're talking about fantasy, I got to see where they go before I feel really confident in putting them much higher. And I think that's the big difference, because I'm interested if we had that third guest where this would have averaged out
Yeah.
then, because that's where we just have like major discrepancies at that point, because like the difference between Chris Brazel and Jeremy Bernard, even at my grading standpoint, they're different types of players, but their overall grade is pretty marginal. So it's just like what team wants what kind of flavor.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could definitely see that happening. And I think it's tough. We kind of talked about this a little bit pre show, but it's like once you get into this range of guys, at least for us, and I think for most people, as far as like trying to project the wide receiver class, it really does open up. It's just like anybody can pick their flavor. Whatever you like is what you like here. And there's really not a lot of difference between a ton of these players from here on out, for me at least, in a lot of these wide receiver rankings.
Hmm. Agree. I liked, again, Malachi Fields a lot to me for Denzel Boston. Reason why I don't like Denzel Boston is I just feel so good about Jacoby Lane and Malachi Fields later, and I mean that as an NFL standpoint. I mean that from fantasy standpoint. That wherever they go, they're going to be on the field and they're going to be pretty competitive. And that's why they're that high. I guess we can move down to the D tier, because this is a big one. This is a big one here, and we had a couple of guys that were all average the same, pretty much. Where we got 5 people that ended up averaging a 13 overall in the rankings. Skylar Bell, Elijah Surratt, Chris Bell, Bryce Lance, Antonio Williams, Dion Burks, Ted Hurst, and Zachariah Branch. I just watched Skylar Bell tape. FYI to anyone watching, I only watched 2 games, briefly went over his tape. Very, very productive. What I found was interesting is that he ran a 4.4. He doesn't always look 4.4 on tape until he does. Like he doesn't I feel like he doesn't always play fast, which means that he can play at good tempo, but sometimes I'm like, man, if you were kind of just running as fast as you can, you'd be separating even faster. And even down the field sometimes, like his Boston College tape, I didn't see him separate consistently. So that was the only thing that I found. You have him in your top 12. How confident are you in him as being a productive guy, at least let's say year 1 or year 2?
Yeah, I think he's gonna end up being a guy who's probably landing spot dependent to figure out how productive he actually is. But what you bring up and what you saw in those brief couple of games that you were looking at is one of the things that I already had in here. Like I just think he's a player that manipulates tempo very well. And you're right, like he can surprise you with some of the explosiveness that he has when he decides to turn it on. So I kind of have him as a guy who I project as a complementary receiver, somebody who probably plays in the slot more than anything. But I look at a lot of the advanced analytics of a guy like this, and that's initially what got me interested in Skylar Bell. His dominator rating is great as far as comparable to the rest of the class and the rest of this wide receiver core. His receiving share in college in 2025 was great. His receiving yardage percentage was great. His receiving touchdown percentage was great. I mean, you said the production was there for Skylar Bell. So he checks a lot of the boxes analytically. His RAS score was a 9.6, which is right where we want to see it. For me, he's just a player that if you land in the right spot, I could see him being uh, not the same type of player, but think of how Tank Dell was productive when he got into that Houston landing spot because he kind of fit the right scheme and the opportunity was there for him from day one. I think Skylar Bell could have a similar situation happen for him if he lands in the right landing spot.
Interesting. From again, guys, when I'm giving you this comp, this is not, I would never publish this as an actual comp. And it's more about play style of what I saw. He reminded me a lot of Stephon Diggs. And with Tank Dell, I could see that a lot too, where you're the Z flanker on the outside or in a lot of inside slot stuff. He's is a very fluid route runner. I think just playing at UConn, he just didn't have a lot of routes. I
Yeah.
don't get the I don't get the impression that he can't do it. Some guys you see, it's like I don't think you can do it. Him, I'm like you can. They're just not asking you to because it's UConn and you don't have to. So he's someone when I get further into it, I can easily see because you have him at 12, I have him at 14. I'm not gonna lie, he profiles as a guy where I might be higher than you, depending on where if I actually put a grade on, because like I'm really big on the route running and all that, and at the end of the day,
Yep.
so like depending on where he is, I'm actually more excited to go deeper in him. Elijah Surratt, very productive from a touchdown standpoint. He's just a 1 or 2 trick pony for me. And I'm going to say it again. A lot of people got upset for me. Those guys don't grade well for me. Even Jaden Higgins, I thought was a better version of this. Someone said I was wrong that Elijah Surratt's better Jaden Higgins. I thought Jaden Higgins was better Elijah Surratt. Where are you at as far as those two as prospects?
Between Higgins and Surratt, I would rather have Jaden Higgins, as far as prospects go. But I do think Surratt's a player that can be involved in an offense. I looked into Matt Harmon's feelings about Surratt. He hasn't produced a full reception perception profile on him yet. But a lot of what I was feeling like is this is a guy who kind of feels like he should do what Keon Coleman didn't do for the Bills. Where, Keon Coleman coming out, we were saying like, man, if he could play that big slot, if we could move him inside a little bit more and not make him play outside, like he might end up being a better receiver. And what did the Bills do, Jagger? They ended up playing him outside as the sacrificial X, and it hasn't worked out for Keon so far at the next level. Like that's kind of the range of outcomes for me with Elijah Surratt. If we can move him inside, let him play a little bit more of that slot as a possession receiver rather than a boundary guy on the outside to rely on his athleticism, I think the ceiling's a little bit higher for him. And I do think he has some nuance to his game as a route runner. I think he's a good blocker, which NFL coaches are going to like. He has strong hands, good body control. Like there's traits here that I like about Elijah Surratt. It's just getting him into the right offense where you can kind of hone the best out of those skills and forget some of the other things that he might not be the best at, which is, in my opinion, some of the athleticism measurables.
Hmm. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Where it he knows how to do his job well, where he and when he does it. And if he is going to be a sacrificial X, like you said, he does everything that you wanted Keon Coleman to do, just much better. He just doesn't have the natural. Like, imagine if you put he and Keon Coleman together, that would be like the perfect boundary. You basically have T Higgins at that point. You know, you just created T Higgins in the aggregate somehow. But I worry just about his overall ceiling, so I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being a useful NFL receiver. For fantasy, I don't see it as much. And I would just rather draft someone like Bryce Lance, who I just maybe I'm maybe I'm doing what I always complain about the NFL's doing, what the NFL does, where I see the success of Christian Watson, and his issue has been injury. It's not been being productive. It's just staying on the field. What if he's someone that isn't quite as athletic, but at least he could stay on the damn field? Because you see almost these same traits, and North Dakota State is very good at recruiting what they like and then coaching them up to be what they like. Like Cole Payton looks like the line of Carson Wentz's that we've seen at quarterbacks come out of there. Bryce Lance looks like the same line of wide receivers that we've come out of there. They're the guys that you should never helmet scout, but when you do scout, you're like, oh yeah, he looks like a North Dakota State guy.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Bryce for me is the athleticism is what makes him appealing. I don't think there's a lot of polish to his game right now. He could definitely get a little bit more polished as he goes on. But a 4.3 at the combine, 41-inch vert, 11-foot broad jump. These are really good athletic testing numbers for a wide receiver. And he goes out and his RAS scores a 9.9. Like it was like 9.95. That's about perfect. He's just almost there as a perfect athletic profile. So somebody who can play on the outside, rely on the speed, the length that he has, because he is a very long receiver. It shows up on tape too. I've compared him before early on as like he's a forward in basketball. Like he plays like a small forward does out on the wing. And then he's kind of got these long arms where he can make plays on defense and things like that. Like that's my basketball analogy for him, right? He goes
Mhm.
out and just plays above the rim on the football field. And I do like what he has. It's a ceiling versus floor thing for me, and when I'm trying to project NFL, I think more so I care about floor. When I'm trying to project fantasy, I care more about ceiling, if that makes sense,
Mhm.
because I want the guys that can score the most fantasy points. In the NFL, I want a guy that can be a contributor on my roster. I'm more confident Elijah Surratt can be a NFL contributor than Bryce Lance can, but if both of them hit, Bryce Lance ceiling is way higher.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I know that that's why I said it's very uncharacteristic, because I'm the same way, man. One reason why I'm big on route running and stuff like that is like that's just a much safer floor to rely on. Or even like Van Jefferson has never been very good, but he continues to get jobs because he's a solid route runner that can be enough and not just like a net negative out there, and he can fit in any system because he can run routes and understand space. So Van Jefferson was like my perfect lesson of like understanding athletic ceiling, but having that very safe route running floor to where you're going to be at least a useful guy who continues to get paid year in and year out. And because like anytime Van Jefferson gets signed anywhere, I'm like, oh wow. And I'm like, well, some guys need a wide receiver 3 or 4 that could come out there and at least just not fuck up a route. And he's that type of dude. Again, this is a big bucket of players. Some intriguing guys. Antonio Williams, I liked his tape. You're the one who put me on to him early. A lot of stuff to like about his tape. He's long. Like the big thing that came out of his combine wasn't just that like he had like a really good vertical, any of that, but his arm length is long, and that matters because he just plays a lot bigger than what his average height has. And then Dion Burks, another one who I loved his tape when he got the ball. I loved this tape even before the ball was thrown a lot, but he had a bad quarterback the year before, and then John Mateer, and he got outshined by Satania. It's just a weird profile, but I like a lot of the stuff on tape. So both of these guys I'm going to take shots on because I'd say coin flip that one, if not both of them, end up on a roster and end up being useful for a team.
Yeah, and if you look at Williams, like, specifically, he's one of those guys that I won't call it the Nicholas Singleton syndrome, but it was junior year was way more impressive than senior year, and something happened in the senior year. We're still trying to figure out what that was, but
Cade Klubnik.
it's probably a mix of that.
Yeah.
But you go out there and, as a junior, you put up 911. As a senior, it's 604. I think his draft stock kind of fell a little bit because of the lack of productivity there as a senior, but he's one of those guys, man, where you talked about it early. Like, you like to rely on the guys who are good route runners. You like to, have these guys that have safer floors. He's one of those guys that couldn't thrive in today's NFL, where you
Exactly.
have to be a zone beater. You have to be fearless across the middle of the field. You have to be good after the catch. Like, he does a lot of those things. You shouldn't be asking Antonio Williams to be a guy that goes and tries to take the top off the defense. He doesn't have the second gear to take the top off the defense, but he can play underneath across the middle right there and really do some damage in between the hashes there. So I think he's a player that definitely could go out and have a role in an NFL offense. Teams are going to be able to use him almost immediately. And if you use him for the things that he's good at, like I just explained, like, he's going to be fine. Don't use him as a guy to take the top off and get physical with corners outside. Like, he's not that guy. Play him in the slot there.
Yeah, and I'm looking at teams where he might be able to land. Like Philadelphia always needs a wide receiver 3 or something like that. He could come in and fit in right away. Minnesota, you guys just lost Jalen Naylor. That's a spot I feel like, hey, he can be, and they use basically a wide receiver handcuff. Addison goes down, put it in
Yep.
Naylor. Yeah, Jefferson goes down. That's like an ideal spot. Atlanta, I don't hate that spot either. Though those are guys that they don't need a Drake London. They don't need someone to be the guy. They need someone to be a guy to make that offense well rounded. And I like that a lot for Antonio Williams. So I wouldn't be surprised. Deion Burks again, it's the same thing. Like, it's the same thing but different. He can take the top off of defense, but at the same time, he's a little bit smaller of a target and isn't as long. So his usage is going to be either a zoomy boy, or you're going to be getting him a lot of slants and whatnot. Whereas Antonio Williams, I think, could be a little bit more possession-y. These next two guys I wanted to give their own kind of time to. Ted Hurst. What are your thoughts on him as a player? Obviously, if you go back to that tweet from Rich Rebar, Ted Hurst, 29.3% of his targets were off target. He is a small school guy. He looked great at the combine in his drills. He's answering every question that you can from his position that you can be in. And unless he was putting up Randy Moss combine numbers, that's the only other thing he could do.
Yeah, I mean, I he's a player for me right now who sits as my wide receiver 17. He definitely has room to grow here, and it's, going to come down to landing spots and things like that, but he's a guy that I think improved a little bit after the catch as a senior. We see him who's quick off the line. He kind of threatens that deep ball. He's a good vertical threat, can play outside, has a lot of route fluidity to his game. I think he's a guy that's probably a Z today that can grow and develop into a more consistent starter as his career goes on. So somebody that I think you can use in the red zone. There's a lot of upside to him. You're right. The testing numbers were right where we wanted to see him. 4.4, 36.5-inch vert. RAS score was a 9.92. Like, we're good with him here. It's just a matter of seeing the small school stuff when you get to bigger, competition and some of the other stuff. And you said he proved a little bit of that in the drills. We haven't seen you play a game. I think that's the big thing where everybody's
That's
like, we
what
want
that,
to go see you play the game against the big names. That's the only question you can't answer right now if you're Ted Hurst.
it's exactly it. It's like, man, I fuck with you, fam. I want to put you higher, but like, like, I need you to play
I
against
got
somebody
the
that's
devil on my shoulder telling me he's a small school guy.
exactly, dude. That's why, like, when we were making this list, for you guys at home, like, I have Tyron Montgomery here. I've watched plenty of tape on him. I can't. it's you want to talk about small school guy. Ted Hurst is a small school guy. Tyron Montgomery, we joked when we talked about him a while back. He's only got all 22 tape because there is no broadcast available. That's it. You go on YouTube, it is nothing but like shaky cam, all 22 from the stands, man. That's it. It's just hard to like. What do I do with that? So
Yeah, it's tough, man. Like you said, it's when you got guys like this, it's you want to move them up, you like the traits, but there's just always something where it's like I know typically if you just look historically, statistically, it's just harder for these guys to really pan out.
yeah. Oh, actually, I forgot another one we need to talk about. We're way off on Chris Bell. I'm having a hard time getting.
Yeah, we're jumping back up to the top of my list here because he's my wide receiver 9.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you think he's just best case Xavier Leggett, uh, or do you think he's a lot better than that? Because like,
I
he's
think he's better.
between AJ Brown and Leggett, and I think he's ahead of Leggett here. I had Alfredo Brown on yesterday's show, and he's just really down on what Chris Bell can do, and sees a lot of the South Carolina wide receiver archetype in it. I'm somewhere in between the both of you, I think. So
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I've been kind of high on Chris Bell from the beginning, and it's been a player that I think has fallen and people have kind of gotten colder on because of the ACL injury. I said the other day on one of my shows, I kind of feel like if he would have finished off the season the way that it was going for him before that injury, keep in mind, guys, he was putting up like 200 plus yard games with multi touchdowns multiple times, multiple weeks in a row. I think this is a player we'd be talking about closer to where I have Omar Cooper and Jeremy Bernard. Like, I truly think he is a super talented wide receiver. He has injury question marks right now, recovering from it. He's not going to be able to test. I think the athleticism was going to be something that really showed up at the combine, would have got people really excited about him. Obviously, he wasn't able to show that as well. He just is, to me, a very high upside X type of wide receiver that I think has the tools to develop into a very physical weapon downfield, be a consistent target at the next level. And the only thing that I can really look at and point as far as outside of the injury for him, the ACL injury, is it took you a little bit of time to break out. You know, you didn't really come out in college and start doing this immediately. It took you to be 24 and a half years old before you started really putting up dominant numbers. And to me, that's like you're a grown man now playing against some college kids, right? Like, so that's the only thing I can really point at and say, I don't love that. The breakout age is poor for him. He's a little bit older as a prospect, 25 right now, going into the NFL draft. But look, man, I think the upside is there. I think he's to go back to your original question of like Leggett versus him. I think he's a different level of receiver than Leggett is.
okay. Um, I I need to go back and re-review some of these skill players, and he's on the top of my list. Last one is Zachariah Branch. I don't know if I've given you my quick sales pitch of him. What if you could have Xavier Worthy? He's a little bit bigger. Good thing. He's slower, less productive, less good of a route runner. What does that do for you?
No, I'm good, man. I don't want it.
that, I'm being guys, I'm not being facetious. Those are fact. That is factual. That is factual. All of Zachariah Branch's production at Georgia, 50% have come from screen passes. That's terrible. That is a terrible, 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 terrible red flag. That's why having Denzel Boston as your wide receiver one isn't as egregious as even having Zach Branch anywhere in close to the top 5. Sorry, I have to say that. I don't get it. I think the NFL, I would not be surprised if Zach Branch gets drafted first round. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets drafted top 50 because the NFL does this. And there's some of the same old men running in the NFL as when like we were kids, like a long time ago. So they're going to continue to make these types of mistakes because they want their Tyreek Hill. They want their Deshaun Jackson, who actually wasn't even as productive as we remember because he was injured all the time because he was small. So I don't get it. I don't get it.
Look, man, I'm going to read you 2 little snippets from my scouting report that I wrote up on Zach Branch, and you tell me where I'm off. I said Zachariah Branch is an explosive playmaker who has elite speed and burst immediately that can stress defenses. He's best when you get the ball in his hands early, showing dynamic yak ability, acceleration, and running back vision through traffic. That's the positive, right? The
All
negative,
true. Yeah.
the negative. I have concerns about his size. He has a limited catch radius, a route tree that is built heavily on manufactured touches rather than full field progression. He also needs to clean up effort and blocking consistency if he wants to stay on the football field. Branch projects as a schemed only slot weapon early on in his career, with upside to grow into a dynamic starting receiver in a motion heavy, space oriented offense that takes advantage of his skill set.
There's no lie, man. Like you're just
What kind of
nicer
receiver
of
is that for you, man? That's just like a guy that if we got a head coach that wants to use him, get him touches, maybe he pans out, but he's a guy that you have to make a part of your offense. He won't become a part of your offense on his own.
he's Malachi Corley. You remember Tavon Austin? Like that's Tavon Austin. This is like I've seen this guy every year of my football life, and it has only worked out twice. Like I think Worthy isn't a I can't say he's a full blown bust, but you would feel a lot better if Worthy was a second round pick doing what he was doing than the first that he cost. Even and they traded up to go and get him is the thing. Like I just don't think that he ended up being worth it at the end of the day. No pun intended.
Keep in mind, dude, Zachariah Branch transfers from USC to go to Georgia because Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane are taking his lunch money as far as usage in that offense. You go to Georgia. At Georgia, your best, most productive collegiate season is 806 touchdowns. 800 yards, 6 touchdowns. That's your most productive collegiate season. Is that a top 3 to 5 wide receiver for you if that's your most productive college season is 806? I agree.
It's like, what are we doing? Yeah. So there's going to be people like, do you really want Antonio Williams over Zachariah Branch? Yeah. Do you really want Deion Burks? I think he was less productive than Zachariah Branch, but yeah, I would rather,
Well,
I'd
keep in
rather have
mind,
it.
Antonio's best, most productive season was like 950 and 11 as far as a
Yeah.
receiver. Like,
Yeah.
that's somebody you can actually use out there.
Ted Hurst, I would rather have that mystery box. Like I'd rather have that like Ted Hurst is being held down by my own reason and caution. Like that's it. Like the tape's
Right.
good. The production's there. Like I'm like it's literally he's being held down because we got to be smart with these small school guys. That's it. Zachariah Branch is being held up because Zumbi Boy go fast. And we know that
Well,
that hurts us more than anything.
and to go right back to like another guy, like Skylar Bell, man. Like Skylar Bell to me is a more complete receiver, more productive receiver than Zachariah is. But we're talking about, I'd say we, but big draft media is basically talking about Zachariah Branch and Skylar Bell like there's a gap of a universe gap size between them.
Yeah. And I've spent 30 minutes with Skylar Bell, and I would rather have Skylar Bell. Like immediately, I'm like, oh
Yeah.
wow, there's a slant. Like Zach Branch can never, that's kind of
Yeah.
where I'm at, we'll finish it off with the very small F tier. To be honest, I'll be clear with you guys. We're 43 minutes in. I just wanted a very round number. I don't feel strongly about any of these guys. So we have Eric McAllister and Aaron Anderson round out the F tier. Aaron Anderson's another one. I actually like him better than Zach Branch. After all my ranting and raving, I like him better than Zach Branch as well. I haven't spent enough time with him. There's not a lot of buzz, and he's a pure tiny slot. That's it. That's all he's going to get for you. I will say those are the type of guys who end up staying on staying on the field often or getting jobs. Like Jalen Naylor is kind of one who I want to bring up. Like these guys that aren't going to be world beaters. They're not going to be the fantasy draft pick, but for an NFL team, they're steady eddies. Eric McAllister was your, hey, here, this will get us to 20 wide receiver. What are your thoughts on him?
I mean, for me, he's my wide receiver 19 in my rankings right now. There's definitely some off the field concerns with Eric McAllister that I think people have already talked about. We've talked about it on this show. He's gotten in some trouble before, but a guy that you can play as like a wide receiver 3 in your offense. Like for me, I said it early days when we did like a sleeper episode early on. Couple months ago, Jagger, and I said, like, to me, the ceiling comp is if he hits what Devonta Parker was. Like, that's kind of
Mhm.
the route that I could see him go. But if you want to talk about like production in college, he was productive, man. We're talking about a guy who had 72 catches this year for almost 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns. Like, went out and played well at TCU. Was Josh Hoover's number one target there at TCU. The dominator rating checks out. The receiving yards percentage checks out. The receiving touchdown percentage checks out. The breakout age was fine. I won't say it was good, but it's fine. It's 19.8 years old. Like, there's things to like about his analytics profile. I just don't think he's super explosive, not super athletic. And I don't think he's a very technical route runner. So for me, that's just like you do some things well, but you don't do anything great. And that really caps your ceiling for me.
Makes a lot of sense. I'll be honest, from just that overview, I would probably prefer Aaron Anderson because, like, I just know what that player is, you know. Um, uh, Patriots, they have like Demario Douglas. That's who Aaron Anderson reminds me of, like those little guys. Whereas the Eric McAllister, that's almost worse. Elijah Surratt, where you need scheme and somebody to really love you to get there. You know,
Yeah.
or like Elijah Surratt's probably going to start somewhere for sure. You know, so I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, McAllister to me, he's like, and this is assuming that NFL teams don't care about the off the field stuff because we know that can affect your draft capital quite a bit. But this is assuming they don't care. At best, he's like around 5, 6, 7 type of guy for me with no character concerns, no off the field issues. He might honestly, like, I hate to say it because I think he's more talented than it, but the off the field stuff, I wouldn't be totally surprised if he's like an undrafted guy.
Is he on like Kayshawn Booty watch, essentially, kind of with the off
Low
the
key.
field stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's kind of how Booty was, where it's just like, man, I just hope somebody want him in the building, let
Hey, and you
alone.
know what? It took a little while, but Booty actually ended up being usable. Maybe that's a light use of the term, but he was usable.
I've seen enough to know that we need another receiver. I'm a Patriots fan,
Yeah.
you know. Like I love him as a wide receiver 3, but him like he's not that guy. You know, is where I'm at. You know, either way though, I don't hate this class. This is a very, very good wide receiver class. I think we all should be hammering a lot of these positions, a lot of this position over running back. If you're going to be doing fantasy, I think that we're going to see NFL teams have a lot of turnover at wide receiver because of this class, where some of these, like the Jalen Tolbert happens to be in the only place where he might end up safe, which is in Miami because nobody's there. But like those types of players is what I'm talking about. The Jalen Tolberts, the Slaytons, even where just because of scarcity, they're gonna have jobs. Who's another one? Rayway McLeod is another one where I'd be worried because man, all the oh, even I don't like Zach Branch. Zach Branch probably more useful to an NFL team than Ray McLeod is, or
Yes.
you know, like that's kind of where I'm at. Like once we get down to Eric McAllister is the only one where I'm like, wow, he's just undraftable for an NFL team. All these other guys, I don't see a world where they go undrafted. I just don't see that.
Yeah, and there's even some guys that I have like just behind McAllister that I think are interesting. It's just really hard to project type of draft capital or
Mhm.
roles. Like Kevin Coleman Jr. from Missouri is interesting. His analytics profile is interesting. Jeff Caldwell's another guy that I think is somewhat
I
interesting.
just took him off because I don't know. He is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, he's interesting, and I think Eric Rivers from Georgia Tech is also interesting. So like, there's a couple names down there too that's like they could maybe creep into this top 20 if they get the right landing spot or they get the right scheme fit. But um, the whole class in general, like you said, like there's a lot of names that I'm at least intrigued by. Like I would have to probably scroll down anywhere between like 12 and 15 wide receivers in this class to start being like, I rather not draft them. There's like 12 to 15 guys that I'm like, yeah, I could definitely see you drafting them on an NFL team and them being contributors and them being, players that we should at least be excited about. So yeah, I like the class, man. I think there's a lot of talent in it. We do lack, I'm not gonna like sit here and act like we have superstar level talent in the class, but we have a lot of really good quality guys. Like even the top of it with Tyson and Tate and Lemon, we're not getting like Malik Neighbors level or Jeremiah Smith or even like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. Like we're not getting those level of prospects, but we're getting really quality guys. Like I almost compare this, like think of last year, man. Like Tedero McMillan and Emeka Egbuka and those guys, the top names in this class, they belong right there with those guys.
I agree 100%. And to make you guys feel more confident in what we're saying, some guys that are still available: Jawan Jennings, Stephon. Well, there's a reason Stephon Diggs is available. Debo Samuel, David Njoku. Um, That's about it. But those are
Yeah.
pass catchers that should be signed somewhere. They're not. And like almost any other free agency, Jawan Jennings would have signed somewhere already. And I think that the NFL is looking at this class like, hey, there's a lot of depth where I could get someone a lot cheaper that's probably going to be better than Jawan Jennings if my cards play out. And then Jawan Jennings is going to get probably a significantly cheaper contract than what he expected later. Well, that'll do it for us, folks. Almost an hour there on one really, like you said, like we've been saying, deep position class. Lots of interesting stuff there. We'll be back again Monday to talk more. As always, it's me, Jagger May. That's Andrew Mott. Love you guys, and we'll see you next time.